you can bury the workman, but the work will go on. You can silence the voices, but you can't stop the song.
Welcome to Wheeling the Pathways of Life Unplugged with your host, Brain Fitzpatrick. Wheeling the Pathways of Life Unplugged is a snapshot of the day-to-day experiences of disabled individuals as they navigate the world around us. We wish to shed light and open your eyes on a new perspective of people with disabilities. And by going unplugged, we can discuss viewpoints we hope will challenge our viewers' points of view. Most of us have disabilities we must live with, but what defines us is the way we deal with them. And now, here's your host, Brain Fitzpatrick.
Good afternoon, folks. I have a very special guest, a very strong advocate for me, Matthew Tucker. Good afternoon, Matthew.
Thank you for having me, Brian. It's always an exciting adventure to be invited on one of PCTV's shows, and it's guaranteed to be an adventure when that show is yours. So thank you.
Yeah, we were talking before the show. I can't believe it's pretty much been 4, almost 5 years now that we've been putting the show together.
It has. And
Yeah.
You say we. I think you give. The credit is kind, but it's been almost 5 years since you've been putting the show together. We just give you the place and the training to make it work.
Yeah, but you don't want to give me the other than the fact that I've been doing it at WRS for 6 years before I came over here. And that was an easy transition. Send over the audio. And I was, at the beginning, I was just sending over a flash drive.
Yep.
Want to wait, say play this one.
Yep. Well, and that was also comparatively early in in PCTV's experience with managing WTBR. So
Yeah.
you were getting a feel for what you could do through Pittsfield Community Television and WTBR, and we had a solid idea of how to manage a radio station, but there's some stuff that you can only experience the hard way.
There was a big no on one of the things I wanted to do first. I learned you can't very easily take a low power station and turn it into a high power station. So you see, for people watching and saying, what are we talking about? WTBR is a FM station, and WRS is a low power station. So, and the two don't necessarily combine too well.
Well, and so, because this is my place of nerdity and expertise, so a lot of people are extremely familiar with FM stations because they've been around for a very long time.
Okay.
But the FCC realized, and I don't know this date off the top of my head. I should know it at some point. I'm going to go look it up afterwards. But they realized that there are areas and communities where they would benefit from having a radio station that serves a small community. but didn't need the power to hit a lot of different towns. So what you have is a full power FM station, similar to what WTBR does, where the transmitter is capable of transmitting. It definitely will hit multiple towns. Some FM stations are super high power, so they get a tremendous range. WTBR, so it doesn't bump into our radio neighbors, has a range that covers sort of central Berkshire County. WRRS and other low-power stations like it, there are actually 3 that I know of. RRS, WBCR in Great Barrington, and WNMB, I think, is the correct call letters, but that one, because the N and the M are so close to each other, I always get them messed up in my head. So forgive me if I've made that mistake. That one's based out of North Adams. So you've got these little stations that can cover their city of origin, or their town of origin, as it were, but not much farther. And they allow those areas to serve a radio need. In RRS's case, it's an extension of an accommodation for communities in Pittsfield who have difficulty seeing. So you've got a lot of content that is tied around, reading of the Berkshire Eagle and other stuff.
You may not know this, or you may know this. Berkshire Talking Chronicles started with nothing more than a closed circuit radio station. It was not a
yeah, it wasn't a broadcast station.
It wasn't a broadcast station. Everybody had their own specific radio receivers that they would turn on at certain times of the day or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't know much about the technology that made that work, but I did know that it started as a closed circuit system, which I find fascinating, because the stuff that I do is, some of it is broadcast on the radio side, but some of it is, I suppose you could call it closed circuit, because cable casting, the stuff that we do at PCTV, at least at the beginning of our organization, was closed circuit just to the cable system. But now, with modern technology, we can do, and you can do, as you're doing right now on this show, on Facebook and YouTube and everywhere else you do it.
Now, I should tell you it's very limited connection right now, but as we grow, it's gonna get bigger. We are now, due to the fact of the computer, we are now being seen in South Carolina.
That's fantastic.
Because my pastor just moved down to South Carolina, so I sent him the shows, so we're getting out there.
Fantastic.
And before I get too far, and this is gonna be a while, but I am considering taking the show on the road. Eventually, at some point, I would like to be down there.
Okay.
So, I'm talking with my crew about doing what you and I talked about in the beginning, like having somebody here to be a producer of the program and somebody to be contacted, but have me move down there so we'd be constant. I'd still be connected via computer or whatever, we can still do the show.
Absolutely.
As if I'm here, but, you know.
And that's what we did for a long time when you were during the pandemic era and during the time when you were sort of making the transition you went from the radio studio to home and then made the transition from home to Studio K and then Studio K to Studio A.
Yeah.
So the technology would be very similar.
Yeah.
But one of the, you hate to, it sounds like you're minimizing the bad parts of the pandemic and the times that were associated with it. And there are many difficult and tragic and traumatizing elements that came with that. But as a television and video person, one of the silver linings that came along is that people realize that they've got the ability to do television sitting on their desk.
Man, one of the technologies you got because of the pandemic, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that why we went to the pan tilt Zoom position?
So, sort of.
Okay.
So to explain what that is to anyone who doesn't necessarily have TV knowledge or hasn't heard me say this, because I don't know where you're joining us, folks at home, so sharing info. So the traditional way that a television program would have been done is you would have had a camera operator behind a camera, controlling the camera and making it move. Over time, there came developments in camera technology and in robotics technology that allow you to control the camera remotely using, looks like an oversized video game controller. And those cameras are called pan, tilt, zoom, or PTZ cameras, because those are the movements that you can make the camera do. You can pan and tilt, which are the fancy TV words for panning is go left and right and tilting is go up and down. And zoom is make the lens go in and out on a subject.
Okay.
Some of the cameras during the development could only pan and tilt. They couldn't zoom. Some of the cameras could zoom, but couldn't pan or tilt. So early on, that PTZ nomenclature was super important, so you knew what the camera could do. Nowadays, most cameras have that range of motion.
I can't wait until we get one that we fuck right and fuck left.
You know, they do have, they're extremely expensive, but they do have, so in our studio we have special tripods that can move up and down and can roll back and forth super smooth. They have robotic pedestal tripods that can do that. They're not cheap, which is why in order to do all of the stuff that we do already for the community as a nonprofit organization, it's hard to get one of those. But there were three reasons actually we went towards that type of robotic camera. The first is that they've become extremely common in the video industry.
And you'd be surprised how many people actually use it, like the news media. You look at a wide shot and you see somebody sitting at a desk, but you don't see somebody behind the camera.
Yeah.
It's like, the first time I saw that, it's like, what?
So the reason commercial stations do it is almost entirely financial. they can pay a single person operating the pan tilt zoom camera in the control room instead of paying a person for each camera. So that allows them to do more cameras more affordably. Because it is extremely common commercially, we're always trying to be as close to what the professionals in the commercial world are doing, just so that the people who come here and join us have an experience that is similar enough that some of the skills they could get, they could apply to a commercial position in a for-profit studio or something of that nature.
If they ever were afforded the opportunity, they could take this information and use it in a for-profit station if they wanted to.
They absolutely could. The second reason is that, and this is sort of the nature of nonprofits, as people have become more protective of their time and really focus in on what they have the space to volunteer with and what they have the personal bandwidth to do in their lives, the amount of volunteers that you have involved in lots and lots of things has gone down. So the number of overall volunteer hours that you see has gone down. Now that's something where nonprofits are always letting people know that there are volunteer opportunities and we want people to get involved. And for all of the viewers in the Berkshire area, to let you know, we're always looking for volunteers, and we'd love to teach you how to do the stuff that Brian and his volunteer crew are doing right now. But the knowing that the number of volunteers that are overall available to all the nonprofits in an area have gone down, we wanted to make it easier for our producers. For someone who wants to make a show, it can be intimidating if someone comes into the studio and says, hey, I want to do a TV show, and you go, that's great, I need you to find 5 people. All of a sudden they go, I barely can find me. So I don't know how I'm going to find 5 other people.
I had a problem finding 3 people for the control room, so it's like,
you can relate that there are, and what's very important to us when we're saying, you need this many volunteers on a show, is we want you to be successful and we want you to be able to do it right. And when you start taking people away, it's definitely possible. Like, I can think of some people that I classify are super volunteers who have been doing this for decades, who are super comfortable in the control room, who can run everything themselves. All of our technical staff have that. I've been in situations where I have done an entire show by myself. It's fun in that I'm on a roller coaster and I may die sort of way. Not literally. Emotionally, though, you can't necessarily tell your brain that there's a difference. But it's not fun in the I'm doing this the best I can sort of way, because you know you're not.
This is an easy way to say it. If the computer do what it's supposed to do, it works fine. But if they don't...
Well, and I'll tell you that that's one of the most nerve-wracking parts of doing any production with a small crew, is if something is misbehaving, you have at least one less person to deal with the production, because that person now has to fix things and make it work. And if there's one person doing the whole production, serious trouble, because now you can't do anything. You've just got to throw the wide shot up, hope nobody yells, put on no graphics, and fix the problem. Rules are out the window. Forget it. Can't do it.
I remember one time, it was the very first show that I did, one of the very first shows, now, it might have been, I think it was the first or second show we did with you. My engineer, set up I sent you over the PowerPoint that I was going to use. Everything was fine until the computer went to sleep.
And it didn't wake up, and it didn't connect the way it was supposed to when it didn't wake up. Yeah, no, that was... I don't remember the specifics, but I remember enough of it to remember that was not a fun time.
And then you had, luckily you were on the show, so you were able to come in and you were able to say, I'll be right back, run over and...
It was a convenient incident that I happened to be there that day.
Oh, Matt, what we're talking about, some of the complicated situations, since I got a little bit of time. What, out of your many years, I know you have many, so it may take a minute to come up with one, but what is the most complicated, should have been easy situation that PCT has ever, or that you can remember has ever had to say, oh crap?
So I find that I know what you're asking. I find the premise of that challenging to sort of respond to.
Okay.
Because I've noticed that the staff at Pittsfield Community Television is unique when it comes to doing productions, in that we are a group of people who love what we do. We want to do it as well as we can with something new each time we do it, or something, at least something to challenge us each time we do it. So when you say, what's something easy that became difficult? Well, everything. Because we get into situations where we say, okay, this could very well be.
That should have been a non-professional question then, because speaking from a professional, you're always beating yourself up saying, we could have done... We should have been able to do this, or,
Well, and I think our attitude as an organization of, when you give us a challenge, we want to be able to complete the challenge and do a little bit better. Yeah. What ends up happening very often is it isn't just we had something that should have gone simply and it didn't work the way we wanted it to. It's that we took something that could have been simple and made it far more complex than it needed to be.
Yeah.
The number of productions where we've said we can only handle 3 cameras. I can think of a great example of that was when one of our producers connected us with the Hinsdale Block Dance.
Okay.
And they did that big stage with multiple bands on it and had everything set up. And when we committed to doing the production with this producer, we said, okay, we can do 3 cameras. Because 3 cameras is a reasonable, it'll give you a number of different shots, it'll give an exciting experience for the audience at home. That's what we can commit to. That makes perfect sense. And we got there and we set up the 3 cameras and we had free time, which is dangerous for any of us to have. Because when you have free time and extra cameras and the wire to connect them, you start going, all right, so what can I add in the time that I have left? And so 3 cameras on tripods turned into what we did the last time we did a block dance, which was 3 cameras, 2 of them on scaffolds, our camera crane jib, someone with a handheld camera, and 2 GoPros up on the stage, one behind the drummer and one like right next to the keyboard so that you could see the keyboard operator right there. So, uh-oh.
We'll be right back, folks. We'll want to PSA and we'll be right back, folks.
You brought me this far, so why would I question you now? You have provided, so why would I start to doubt? I've never been stranded, abandoned, or left here to fight alone. So I'm giving you control. I lift my life up. Give it all in surrender. I lift my heart up. You can have it forever. All my dreams, all my plans, Lord, I leave it in your hands. I lift my life up. Have your way in me. Have your way in me. If peace is a river, then let it sweep over me. If I'm under fire, I know it's refining me. When I hear you calling out, I'll follow now, wherever the road may go, because I know you're leading me home. I lift my life up. I give it all in surrender. I lift my heart up. You can have it forever. All my dreams, all my plans, Lord, I leave it in your hands. I lift my life up. Have your way in me. Have your way in me. Take my life and let it be all for you. Take my life and let it be all for you. I lift my life up. I give it all in surrender. I lift my heart up. Take my life. I lift my life up. Give it all in surrender. I lift my heart up. You can have it forever. All my dreams, all my plans, Lord, I leave it in your hands. I lift my life up. Oh, have your way in me. Have
us on the air. We got all of them. Good afternoon, folks. This is Brain Fitzpatrick. We're back with Matthew Tucker after a small technical difficulty. Thank you, Matt, for correcting the issue.
Well, it's handy when you've got a staff person sitting in the room being your guest who can, when we go to PSA, can dash over and mess with things.
While we were talking about this, we were just talking about at the end of the last segment, things that go wrong, and that was a demonstration of one of those things.
There is a common refrain from television, either professionals or people who volunteer and do it regularly, and it's, without explanation, completely with, the way that you say it at live television. It happens. It's all good. And I was glad I could help.
Whatever's going to happen, well.
Oh, absolutely. Part of what makes producers' hair go gray is planning all of the things that might happen.
What I love is all the tests in the world, they come back positive, but as soon as you go on the show, it's like...
Well, and that broke, yeah. And it's either the thing that you tested 19 times, you should have tested 20, because the 20th time it breaks.
Yeah.
Or you've tested everything you can think of, and the most absurd thing you can think of breaks.
It's like the year before last, not this past year, but the year before. You told me about one that was very interesting. You set up a pan-tilt Zoom on top of the DA's office, and just before you go to use it, transmitting goes.
Oh, that was heartbreaking. And so, providing a little context, we did the Pittsfield 4th of July parade that year and had tested, and I think it was the first year that we had done a live parade since the dark times. And so we were super excited. We were shaking all the dust off and making sure all of the stuff worked the way it was supposed to. Everything worked fine the day of. Everything gets turned on and it's ready to go, and we've got the remote camera that gets that beautiful shot down South Street. Remote controlled, partially because we can, partially because it's the safest way to do things, because that's really high up.
Yeah.
And having a person up there always made us uncomfortable. So as soon as we were able to do it remotely, we did. But it started working fine, and then shortly before we were to go live, it just stopped. And come to find out, the piece of equipment that was on it had been in service for a long time, right around 7 or 8 years at least. And it burnt out.
Time to retire.
Well, and the way they rotate and update and change technology nowadays, if we can get something for 5 or 6 years, we consider ourselves extremely fortunate.
Yeah.
And this exceeded that. So whenever we have some extra years in hardware, we cheer.
One issue you didn't know about. I was sitting here at the studio doing a show, and my crew came running in saying, "Is somebody at your house using your computer?"
Uh-oh.
Because we were using the screen sharing software, so because he could put all my stuff on the internet and stuff,
Yep.
and do all the internet stuff, and we had the screen minimized so nobody could see the device I was using, and somebody just happened to be going into my computer, and the person at the house was using my computer. So from that point on, I dedicated a tablet just for production and said, nobody touch this one because it's scared to. It's scared the living crap out of the control room because it's like, it's somebody breaking your house.
Fortunately not, but...
And then I remember one with you. I was doing a show, and I get a knock on the door. It was Pittsfield PD.
I remember that one quite a bit. They checking in on...
Our neighbor.
Yep.
And it's like,
Live television.
and then I had the exterminator come in. Exterminator come in and ask me a question too. It's like, can't you tell him music?
I've got headphones on and I've got my thing set up and you can see all the different windows. Don't you realize I'm working?
Yeah. Now, there is one thing that I will give you credit for. You have more of an understanding. All the crew does here, but you have more of an understanding about people with disabilities because you work with it every day of the week, so.
And it's something that has become important to me because of my, anyone who's watched knows that I have a daughter with cerebral palsy, like you, but as you well know, CP is a spectrum of things.
Yeah.
And, she's nonverbal and can't walk, but is quite mobile. Once she figured out crawling, we were doomed. And is extremely communicative. She just does all of her communication without words. So, in living...
Grab you by the tail, I can pull you down to the floor or something like that if you want something.
Well, and it's not quite in that regard. We've got some more nonverbal things. We're working a little bit on having her do some rudimentary sign language where she's figured out ways to communicate with the people who work with her every day. It's almost something I couldn't easily describe, but she's figured out how to get your attention and get you where you need to be and paying attention to what her needs are.
Is there you go?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is, it's funny because my other 3 kids are extremely attached to my wife. So we regularly joke I get the one. And she has taught me a tremendous amount because when I can remember when I was first beginning to parent and my first one was coming. I was in my mid-20s, so not at all experienced with the world, and was absolutely terrified because the thought of taking care of a child with a disability, I didn't think it was something that I could do. And I had a great deal of respect for people who had family members and friends and worked with people with disabilities, because it was something that I felt that I'd never be capable of. And one of the most important things that she taught me is that you may think that you're not capable of handling the challenges.
But you are.
Not only are you, but it changes the way that you see everybody around you, because you get to realize, like you had me say in the intro, that everybody has a need or an accommodation or a challenge or something they can do and something they can't do. And these things that people can and can't do, some of them are more profound and more obvious.
Yeah. I will give you more credit, but you're gonna understand why. When I walked in here, let me real quickly tell you, there was many telethons that I would just go up, not planned on going on the air. As a matter of fact, I told the people at UCP, I'm not going on the air. And they'd say, why? Because I was more interested in the production, in the production side than I was doing the fundraising, doing the stuff they wanted me to do. So there's many challenges and many situations that I learned from those experiences. Because whatever can go wrong when you're doing a 6-hour or even a 4-hour show, it's amazing.
The amount of planning to avoid the things that can go wrong and then rolling with the things that do go wrong are a very unique production experience.
Yeah.
There are times that it was a tremendous amount of work. It was a weight to have to put all the pieces together. But there is something very unique about a long production like the telethon, where you've got groups of people working together. TV production in general is a team sport, and for something that long, it becomes a bigger team sport, because you've got to make sure you've got enough people to handle all of the pieces for as long as they can handle all the pieces. And it's quite unlike anything else I've done, and there are times that I miss doing long events like that. They are a beast to put together. The team at UCP spent months preparing, and then when we got involved, we easily spent another month making sure all of the pieces were put together so it all worked.
I remember one time a production person was in the control room, sitting there watching how things were going, and they sat down in their chair, not realizing they sat down on the wire that fed the computer to put us out over there. It's like, oops.
The silly little things that can happen. And like you say, when you've got a longer event like that, the number of things that can happen, the number of things that can go wrong aren't multiplied.
Yeah.
They are just, you've got longer for them to go wrong in a row. So in a 2-hour show, you're only worried about those 27 things for 2 hours. But for a 6-hour production, can they make it all 6 hours?
And then we had a situation where we weren't able to go live in all county, the whole county. So we had to rely on other volunteers, and I'll say it again, volunteers, to run tape from North to South County and run South County to North County.
So it was an awe-inspiring process, because I was not an employee at PCTV during that era. I was a student volunteering at CTSB in Lee. And so one of the things that was sort of hidden was the fact that the telethon, there would be that big entertainment section where it would go for a certain amount of time. But in order to get the telethon on in all of the locations, what would happen is, so the telethon would start at 1 in Pittsfield.
And go to 7 o'clock in the night.
And the people in Pittsfield are recording. So once an hour would be done, they would swap tapes. They'd get a new tape rolling, so there wouldn't, or there would be an overlap. There would be a period of time where they could not be recording because they had to switch some stuff over. They had to make sure the tape was ready to go. They had all sorts of fail-safes involved. But what would then happen is someone would be handed that tape, and they would race. One would race South County, one would race North County, and they'd hand the tapes to the people at those locations. And then those locations, in those areas, the telethon started at 2. Because you were watching the telethon, and because of the nature of that delay, the stations also ended up being the places that would get the phone calls would go into those locations. So they would set up a phone bank at South County, and they'd set up a phone bank at North County.
They would call back and say, "This is how much we got down here."
Exactly. And during that gap that would be planned in each program, there would be some sort of planned programming. In North County, they would have a group of people at the station who would do live performance, and in South County, they would have, because it was the night and time that Monument Mountain Television would normally record, the students at Monument Mountain Television, of which I was one, would fill in and do all the technical stuff during that period of time, and would stand out and would have some sort of entertainment. Usually there'd be a student entertainer, and they would do their host piece of Hi South County, where the students at MMTV were here to bring you the UCP telethon. And let's go back to the Crown Plaza an hour ago.
We've come a long way, baby.
No kidding. Because we were able, it reached the point where we were able to send the video signal to the stations. And now it's almost magical, because if we were to do a production like that, we actually do, it's not quite the same scale, but every time we do the 4th of July parade, that uses the same technology. and we send an internet video stream, and the computers that manage all the TV shows that people watch can pick up that stream and play it.
Yeah. And the one thing that I remember too, and I know I'm running always, the one thing I remember is a time when a cable at the time had to go pull the pole and pull take the amplifiers and switch them around so we could backfeed the system, stuff like that. And this is going way back. We took a TV one time on the balcony of the Crown Plaza, what used to be the Hilton, and we fed the audio signal into the audio link output and audio output to the tower up on Mount Greylock, so we could get the audio back into the ballroom. So it's like we've come a long way.
I will say that while the challenges that you will see in production nowadays, so many things are so much easier.
Yeah.
There are
so many different things that can go wrong.
Well, the stories of what can go wrong sound more like you can communicate to someone who's used to using computers, and they'll understand them relatively well because a lot of the problems are computer problems now. There was analog video was this magical Wild West era where everything could go wrong in the most dramatic way possible, but the absolute Rube Goldberg machines that you could come up with in order to make something work made some absolutely fantastic stories. There aren't as many fantastic stories that I can think of that come into play like that nowadays.
You know how we got this is way back when, so I can tell the story. My dad used to help get all the electrical and everything going. So you know what he used to do? He used to take the stove out of the mini kitchen out of the ballroom and take a pair of alligator clips from the cables.
Yep.
And put it on the middle part of the power source and dedicate power to wherever you guys needed it so that we could run the system. So that's how far back we go.
Oh, jeez. Well, and now we can show up at a place with a couple cameras and a suitcase and a little backpack generator and pull it off somehow.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say though, Matt, and people don't realize, everybody thinks, this is just a small little public access channel and you're only getting local aspects of it, you're only getting work. We've gone, the station has been nationally recognized and on CBS, on 60 Minutes,
there have been a number of instances from everything from there's a couple trade organizations that we are connected with where the stuff that we do has been nationally recognized. I think the big scale national recognition that you point at is we were on CBS Evening News, and it was specifically on WTBR FM, one of our programs, Mundo Latino, ended up being one of those wonderful human interest stories where the hosts, again, volunteers, create a bilingual radio show for 2 hours of music and community information and activism, and it's a lot of fun. But the fact that this is the way that this family serves the community and spends time with each other really struck the people at CBS, and it turned into a great story. And the fact of the matter is that is a great example of the type of story that you can create here at PCTV. Volunteering, getting involved, creating a program.
And have it nationally recognized. Quite
possibly. Although if you get no recognition at all, you also get the opportunity to, it's not every day that you get to sit in front of your community. And my first show, without adding the Unplugged part, Wheeling the Pathways got national recognition too. It did, well deserved, because it's a unique and special thing to do what you do, in that you are someone with a very specific, unique interest that the community doesn't get to hear about all as much as they should. And organizations like ours have the opportunity to give you a place to share your story and connect with people, and with the fact that we're in South Carolina now, that broadens the fact that we a little known station in Pittsfield, Massachusetts can get that far. That's pretty cool. That was unheard of. Matt, before we run out of time, how do people, and you can put up the graphics anytime, Kels, how do people get a hold of you? So if people want to be like Brian and have a show of their own, or are just curious about what we do, you can reach me at any time, mtucker@pittsfieldtv.org. If you want to use phone instead, area code 413-445-4234, and my direct line is 0121. Unlike some people where I can text you and get away with it, but I get a hold of them by text because it's easier for me. But what I wanted to do today, and what I hope we can take a totally volunteer crew and a totally well-equipped station with smart people like Matt and the dedicated crew, and put a not a semi, but a actual professional looking show, even though it may not have turned out the way you want it sometimes, or you have microphone problems that we can actually come up with and get done. But
This has been a great show, Matt, and I appreciate you coming on and talking about it. We should do it again soon.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be invited, and I'm glad to talk about the station and we love, and hopefully encourage someone to come down and do what you do.
Don't do what I do, do your own thing, but
True.
you know, but if we can help, we will. And this has been Brain Fitzpatrick, bringing you an episode of Wheeling the Pathways of Life. Have a good afternoon, folks, and thank you, Matt, for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
You can